be with you.
Hello, everybody. Long time no see. Mel LaFera here, astrologer, tarot consultant, all around creative from sunny San Diego, California. Can you tell Mercury is still retrograde? Well, I thought it's been a while since I've been on the YouTubes or the podcast, and I thought I would pop on to talk about this upcoming Aquarius full moon that is going to be happening this weekend on August 9th around midnight time here, Pacific time. And, Aquarius action, this is all about the community and what we bring to the people, right? When we think about the Leo Aquarius axis, it is this energy of how do you shine? What does your heart and your passion and your desire, percolate within? And then how is it projected out into the public? And who is there to receive it? Now, that's one aspect of this axis that we'll be talking about here today. But before we get started, I am really excited to share about a community event that is happening during this full moon in Aquarius. So let me divert you to my pitch here before we get into the Aquarius full moon. And my pitch is for the Revolution Rising Summit, Astrology for the Zeitgeist. So before I tell you about it, let me play this little highlight reel to give you a little taster of what we're going to be doing this weekend. So we have 3 keynote speakers. We have Becca Tarnas, who is a wonderful astrologer. Of course, Gray Crawford, who's a dear friend of mine you've seen on this podcast. Shireen Vismaya. We'll be talking on the 12th house. Diana Rose Harper has a wonderful presentation. We've got Dabney Lawless. We've got Catherine Urban, who I love, and Celeste Brooks, Brian Almana, Leslie Tagorda, Tasha Begg, Nora Rochelle. And Zachary Powell has a great presentation on asteroids and the muses. Check it out for sure. And of course, this summit is brought to you by Christina Caudill, my dear friend, and I am the co-host with the mostest. We're the hostess with the mostesses. So it's free to register to watch this weekend. We'll be airing everything live from Friday through Sunday, and then there will be 24-hour replays in case you can't catch it live. There'll also be 3 roundtables that we'll be doing live on Zoom, which will be part of an all-access pass if you're interested in signing up for that. I'll be hosting a roundtable on the astrology of the United States. There will be a roundtable on which will be Friday. There'll be a roundtable on Saturday, which is about the Uranus-Pluto trine. And then there'll be a roundtable on Sunday that has to do with the astrology of 2026. Already looking ahead. So there'll be a link to register. You have to register. You can't just show up and be like, where's the live? You need to have your link to get there. So register at the link in the description below if you're on YouTube. And if you're on, listening to this as a podcast, go to the description. It'll be there. So I hope I have enticed you to come join us. We'll actually have a community for the summit. So you can come introduce yourself and stir up conversation and share your thoughts. And we also have live chat during the presentation videos too. So we're hoping people come on by and watch and share and build that community. So all right, let's get into our full moon in Aquarius, which I have titled A Taste of the Future. When we think about Aquarius, a lot of times we go to, Aquarius being a very future-oriented sign where, we rise above and we can detach from what our lives look like to see this bigger sphere of where we're going, what we want to do, maybe spiritually with our lives. And then also that detachment level that allows us to look at things from a broader perspective so that we can reform what our lives look like. If things aren't working right now, and it helps us get out of the feeling of being mired by our circumstances and to rise above it and sort of be the water bearer that sits upon the earth, and where, consciousness is being dropped down into us intuitively during this time, that I think will really just help us understand where we're going and why, and the more of the logical, analytical, like decisions around our trajectory, our current trajectory. And why I say that is that one of, we always want to look to the ruler of the full moon, right? And so Saturn is the ruler, being the traditional ruler of Aquarius. And Saturn, if you look in the chart here, is conjunct Neptune. We are in Aries, and they're both retrograde right now. But essentially, we are on this really long lead up to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's happening in February of 2026. So having this full moon, and this is a back-to-back full moon. If you think about it, we had full moon in Capricorn last month, which is Saturnian in nature. And then we have the Aquarius variety this month, which is also Saturnian in nature. But this is the closest that Saturn and Neptune are going to get to one another. And if you see in the chart here, we have good old Mars, who has moved into Libra and is opposing that conjunction. So there is there's a pressure point to what it is that Saturn-Neptune conjunction is, the foundation that it is laying, that we're essentially going to be leading up to in spring or late winter or spring of 2026. And if you can see, if you're watching the video and you can see in the chart, we have a kite formation going on here with Saturn and Neptune at the axis point, and Mars is opposing it. And then we see that the kite is flanked by Uranus in Gemini, and then Pluto retrograde over there in Aquarius. So it's a fascinating situation that we got going on here, because we happen to be at a time where in the month of August, we have both Saturn and Uranus making a sextile to one another, and Uranus and Neptune making a sextile to one another. So these are very slow moving planets, and they don't come together every day. And sextiles are opportunities, right? So there's this, in my mind, I feel like we're getting this point where we're moving through difficulties, through new opportunities, or maybe innovative perceptions, and where we have to pair discipline and foresight together in order to get to the next stage of life. And same with Uranus Neptune, which will be perfecting more at the end of the month. And to me, that feels like we're tapping into sort of an altered state of reality. When we think about, the catchphrase of the paradigm shift, this is the opportunity for that, right? Because we have Uranus helping to awaken our mind and our perceptions to new ways of viewing the world or thinking about things. And Neptune can bring the spiritual experience, right, or the mystical experience. And so there might be downloads this month where we can perceive something larger than the self, to which we can, essentially set our compasses to. So that being said, that sextile, so there's bigger patterns at play, not just in our personal lives, absolutely on the collective. This is a highly energized collective full moon, not just because it's the, Aquarius, which represents the community and the collective, but because these bigger, slower configurations are perfecting. Mars is exacerbating things, and the sun and Mercury retrograde over there are in Leo, which is the sign of people in power. And so we're definitely going to see how power dynamics of people in charge play out with a community response to that, whether that's on the grand world scale or in your local communities or local governments, or even the groups that you're involved in. So the challenge here, so we have two things going on. We essentially have the challenge of the Mars opposition to Saturn retrograde and Neptune retrograde. And then we have the flow of the grand air trine with Mars, Uranus, and Pluto retrograde. And so let's talk about the challenge first, because, Mars brings tension to whatever needs, disruption or energizing or action placed towards. And so if there's anything that maybe was just like scooting by or flowing or is laying dormant in any capacity, Mars is going to bring the action or the pivot energy there. So it's it can poke the sleeping bear, so to speak. And I like to think of it, we go back to our kite analogy, Mars so we're kind of forming a bow here. So think about if Mars is the energy that is pulling back the bow and the arrow, right? It's creating the tension, and it takes a lot of force to pull back a bow and aim it just right, and then to be able to release it. And essentially, what's being released is the Saturn-Neptune focal point here, which, as I said, is a brewing situation that we're going to see culminate at the beginning of next year. So look to where your action energy is right now, especially when it comes to dealing with other people, because it's in the sign of Libra, where Mars is not really at home, right? It's in its detriment there. So where Mars just wants to go and do things and it's all about me, or this is my agenda. There are other people to contest with. So it might lessen Mars a little bit more, where Mars can be more diplomatic or can compromise, or where there's diplomacy or compromise needed. Maybe Mars will stir the pot a little bit, but not so much to where I feel like there is opportunity for resolution here. And why I say that is because we have the grand air trine of Mars, Uranus, and Pluto together, which is a precursor, because the sun is going to be where Mars is right now around the equinox, and it's going to light up this same grand trine. But there is this flow that allows us to rise above and communicate and do things differently, be open and willing to change how we maneuver or take action in the world or make decisions in some way. Think about Libra as a very decisive force, which is very counter or contradictory, because, it's like Libra, it's so indecisive. And I don't think that can be the case, but what's important to remember about Libra is that it is about decisions. It's about weighing the two sides. It's about consequence and knowing the power of our choices. And that's why indecision can set in sometimes with Libra energy, is because there is a consequence. You choose one path, the other one is not available anymore in most circumstances. And that so that can create pressure around making decisions. And it can also be about making decisions from a more reflective state of mind, since we have so many retrogrades going on with the Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. Mercury is still retrograde during this full moon, and it's in its Promethean phase, so we are entertaining new ideas with our life and exploring where our passions lie and what we want to create. But there still is this internalized process of going through what that actually looks like. But we're energized here. So to go back to the challenge, this is the midpoint range of the Mars-Saturn cycle, right? When Mars opposes Saturn, we can look back to see when they were initially together and what was started during that time, which I want to say, if memory serves me correctly, that was in April of 2024 is when they conjunct in Pisces. So this is that turning point where we might, there can be the need for a lot of hard work right now, where you just have to go and do it and do whatever it takes to get to the other side. Your to-do list is piled up. You've got to talk with a million different people about things, and, maybe other people are getting in the way of what it is that you're creating, the Aries energy. And so there can be obstacles that we have to get through, or we have to be creative in how we can go around them. Or sometimes we have to let go and hang back. But there can be this pressurized energy in the moment, but it is a bigger cycle in the sense of what we're doing, what we've committed to, where we put our effort and our energy for the last, almost year and a half. And how is that panning out for us? And what can we do now to balance those scales based on new information and new energy coming in with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, right? Because maybe Neptune has the message of, this is what I envision, this is what I dream of. And then Mars is like, okay, well, maybe we need to pivot and change course in some way so that we can get to that ideal or that vision or creative energy that is brewing there. But in real time, it can make things a little bit harder right now, and it can make things a little more confusing and a little more scattered, because Neptune can tend to just diffuse energy as well. So just know there is this idea of, when to let go, when to pull back, when to push through, being spiritually aligned, how we deal with the we versus the I, and maybe even how we work as a team versus doing things ourselves, or, maybe even having to cut out the social life in some capacity in order for the self to I don't want to say reflect on the vision of what the self wants, but there might be this dynamic tension between how we socialize, how we come together versus how we do our own thing. All right. That being said, let's talk about a sweet spot, right? All right. Before I talk about a sweet spot, I will say that flanked on either side, when are we going to feel this Mars, Saturn, Neptune business? Well, I'm recording this on Tuesday, August 5th, and the moon is lighting it up. So if you're feeling that energy, if Monday and the beginning of Tuesday felt that kind of vibe, that makes sense. On Thursday, the 7th, right before the full moon, we have a flow with the moon making a sextile and working with this energy. And then we have it in tension again on Tuesday, the 12th. So just be on a lookout. Pay attention to these days and see what that Mars, Saturn, Neptune configuration looks like in your life. So on to the sweet spot. Let's talk about Venus and Jupiter. Do you see Venus and Jupiter over there hanging out in Cancer? Venus is getting ready to conjunct Jupiter, and that is built into this full moon. And so, a lot of astrologers will be like, this is the golden aspect because it's the two benefics coming together in the sky. And I mean, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. Venus likes being in Cancer. It's her triplicity there. So what's not to like about two benefics coming together, right? There is such thing as too much of a good thing, but I feel like Mars and Saturn are going to keep us on some level, some track, to where we're not going to just be all hanging back and letting loose, right? There's some sort of balance. And this really comes down to rulership, right? Because that Saturn-Neptune energy is being received by Mars because it's in Mars's sign. So Mars is dictating basically what Saturn and Neptune, the energies around these planets and how to maneuver their archetype right now. It all comes back to this Mars energy. But Mars is not in its own sign either. So it is looking to Venus over there in Cancer. So it's almost like no matter what we have to, maybe endure or get through during this full moon or this weekend, especially when Mars pressurizes Saturn and Neptune, there is some sort of smoothing out that happens with Venus. Venus can help, especially if relationships or there's disconnection, socially or in partnerships. Venus and Jupiter can help smooth things over. And, if there's roughness, we can carve out the edges here. Or maybe there is an obstacle or a difficulty, but there's a silver lining when it's all said and done. Because Venus and Jupiter are going to come together and perfect on August 11th, which is the Monday here. But August 10th, the day after the full moon, the moon will be in Pisces and lighting up by trine that Venus-Jupiter. So Sunday really has a sweet spot. If we could just get through all the Mars action, it's almost like we can breathe past that point. And they're, Venus and Jupiter together can help it in our happiness levels, in harmonious love expression, being able to be kind and benevolent to the people we love and care about and express that in some way. Enjoying luxury and comfort a little bit more, especially we might need to let loose after the intensity that precedes it, right? It could also be very artistic and creative where the juices are flowing especially on Sunday. So if you have that, brilliant idea that just pops into your imagination, go with the flow, flesh it out, just see, no, not too much pressure, but entertain it, because there might be some level of, creative, genius that can come out around this time. Now, all that being said, we also have the cherry on top of Mercury stationing direct, because Mercury stations direct on the 11th of August. So right after the full moon. So basically during the full moon, Mercury is slow stationing and getting ready to emerge in the skies. And so we know Mercury loves to give the trickster energy or play with us a little bit. And I know one of my animal cards this week was the possum, which talks about have a backup plan. So right now we might need to have a backup plan in some respects with our lives, whether it's in the moment or in the grander scale of how are we doing this? How are we showing up? How are we making decisions in life? How are we relating to others? Who are we in relation to the community? And this bigger picture, and how might that need to shift? Or what information have we collected about our own, through our own conscious awareness of the self that then is ready to be enacted through our decision making or our, mental sorting through or naming in some way, because that's what Mercury does. It selects, it names, it expresses and, defines. And so it can add a little chaos to this time with Mercury and its tricks, but ultimately there's this turnaround after the full moon that I think can put us on a helpful path that is essentially giving us a taste of the future and where it's all headed. So, all right. Now before we wrap up here, I wanted to share a few cards that I pulled for this full moon. Very apropos. We have the Tower in the waxing gibbous phase. So we know the Tower is going to shake things up. And this is Mars's card. So Mars is coming to the forefront. It's saying, okay, this structure needs to be dismantled in some way, or this isn't working, or we've got to level up in our conscious awareness and do things differently. And it can be jarring. When I say have a backup plan, the Tower can come in and you had this grand idea or this grand plan, or this is how it's going to go. And then the earth quakes below you and bam, that plan isn't there anymore. That option isn't there anymore. Or something that you might decide within your own person, right? We have a lot of air and fire going on. So events are going to be happening fast, as they do with air and fire. But because of the retrogrades, there can be this internalized reflection of thoughts reprocessing things, and more of maybe an internal Tower moment that then can be relayed to the outer world. And then what's backing that is the Two of Blooms here, which is also in the waxing gibbous phase. And so this is about making our decisions in life and walking new paths. It's about opening our world to something wider, where we might be a big fish in a small pond, and it's time to be that small fish in a big pond. So how do we make decisions and own our own dominion? Because that is also a card of Mars. That's Mars in Aries. And it's the it's the first decan of Aries in the tarot, which has to do with where Saturn and Neptune are right now. So these cards are very apropos. So it's like, what can you shake up? There we go. What can you shake up and dismantle or move with the flow of doing things differently in order to make new decisions, walk new paths? I don't know why that's not focusing, but and, stretch your reach in life. Take a risk. Just FYI, that's the Tarot of Her deck that Sarah, Jane, and I created, which we are going to be kickstarting our second edition here in a few months in the fall of 2025. It is, we've finished an expansion pack for it. And so we'll have an expansion pack of 22 reimagined majors and the sold out deck coming back through Kickstarter. So definitely keep a lookout for that. And just a few words of support before we leave here. I asked, where could we be supported or what to look out for? And the first card that came up was fear. And the second was feel. And so to me, this spoke a lot about, originally I put the idea of like, feel the fear and do it anyways. That's a very Mars theme where I literally have a little card here that says courage equals fear plus action. Have you been scared around something or timid? Maybe feel into that and question why that fear is there so that action can be taken. Or maybe whether it's the fear that's internalized or it's the fear outside of us. I mean, think about it. We're living in a very volatile world right now that is survival based in many regards for a lot of people. And living in that fear mentality of, what could go wrong, at all times. And fearing what the future might look like, because if you think about a taste of the future, well, we don't want to taste it. We don't want the taste of our future being filled with fear, because then we are building into that and we're living in this dysregulated nervous system that is just feeding that, right? And that's going to seep into our emotional well-being and our feelings and our baseline state. So this could be a great time, especially if there's fear around walking new paths or opening new doors or taking new routes with like the Two of Blooms energy. How can the Tower come in to take a look at those fears and disrupt them in a way, or bring a different consciousness to them so that we can internalize it, feel it, and maybe consult our intuition or our, somatic sensory self to be like, is this something I really need to be afraid of? Or feel into where this fear originates from to begin with. Why is it there? And rather than just getting heightened about it or just operating off the fear itself, give it a moment to feel into it, understand its presence, see if it's protecting you from something. And hopefully that will help integrate it in some way. So I hope those cards were helpful in this delineation of our Aquarius full moon. I gave you some insight as to the taste of what your future could look like. All right. Well, I hope you sign up for the summit. Once again, it's going to be a great time. It's going to be so Aquarian with our community, with all our wonderful speakers. I'll be speaking on actually interrupting your status quo, which is about personal liberation for collective change. So I'm going to be talking all about these shifts that are going on in the skies, and then how we can essentially work through things like burnout or anxiety or perfectionism tendencies, so we can liberate ourselves and our energy to make a difference in the world. So that will be my talk that I hope you show up for. So yeah, register below. We hope to see you there. And yeah, if you want to find me, you can go to energeticprinciples.com. You can go to energetic principles on IG. Follow, like, subscribe here on YouTube. Or if you're listening to the podcast, you can do the same. And of course, I have my monthly newsletter, The Heavenly Wind, so get on my mailing list for that. But yeah, I think that is all. I have taken up enough of your time. I wish you the best out there during this full moon in Aquarius. Remember, it's all about community and showing up for one another and shining your light in the world the best way you know how. And if there's anything that's blocking that, This is the time to really push through that and get to a sense of equilibrium that is aligned with your spiritual self and your spiritual gifts, so that we can all come together and create as one. Doesn't that sound very hippie? I'm going with it. All right, everyone, take care out there. I will see you again sometime soon, hopefully. And as always, may the stars be with you.